Hello everyone, so today's video is going to be my my September wrap up, my bad. I'm ahead a month. Anyway, so yeah, this is coming out a little later than I wanted it to, but I had to collect my thoughts over some things. So let's just get right into it, because I might rant, I don't know. But I ended up reading 4 books this month, and one was a series, a trilogy. So I ended up reading A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I ended up covering most of this trilogy in my book vlog for last month. So if you haven't seen that, you can go check it out if you want more of my on the spot thoughts for this trilogy, but I'll still go in order for each. But as for the summary of this, we're following our main character, Pip, who is a senior in high school, and she starts up this senior capstone project to go and look at a famous case that happened in her hometown in Fairview. She didn't agree with what the police had decided, but they had never charged anyone because the suspect had, by the police force's determination, committed suicide. But it was pretty much, the case was about a senior 5 years ago had died, and they could never find her body. Well, she went missing. They don't know if she died or if she just has been missing, but she's been gone for 5 years, and her name is Andy. And the police's main suspect was her boyfriend, Sal. And so they found him, his body, and it looked like suicide. A few days after they had released the official missing statement for Andy, and from there they kind of just closed it and decided that she was still missing. It was past the normal look time for a missing person, so I forget how many days it is, how many hours, and they just kind of chalked it up to Sal doing it, which Pip always thought that wasn't what really happened. So she starts digging into this case. She starts interviewing people around the town that were connected to the two involved in the case as well. So the makeup of this book is, I really like it. It's very quick to read. It's very fast paced, and I think the way it's structured helps with that. So we get a lot of her summarizing her thoughts in logs that she's using for her documentation of her capstone project. And then we also get transcripts of interviews with people that she is going and visiting to get more information on both Andy and Sal, and also just the case in general. And then, so those are interspersed, and also some other text chats and etc., things that go along with the case as she's finding out more information, and they're interspersed between the chapters. And the chapters in this are really short. And the good thing is most everything in this, most sections of it and chapters are always giving us new information for the case, so there's never any part of it I felt that was extra information. During the actual chapter parts of it, we do get a little more of Holly Jackson's writing style, and also we get more look into how our characters are, how they are in their personalities and things. And we get a little of the funny banter among Pip and her friends in this, and the funny humor, but there's not a whole lot of it, so you really just are wholly focused on the case. So I really like that about this. That structure definitely changes over the course of the trilogy, which is interesting. But yeah, the main focus is definitely this case, and it gets all solved in the first book. I also mentioned in my book vlog that you could definitely just read the first one and not touch the rest of the trilogy, but if you want more mysteries solved by our main character if you like her, or if you're just interested in other, like, skeletons in the closet that get, dug up later in the series, I would continue it. Honestly, I would, just because, like, there's some stuff in the last one. But anyways, so as for my thoughts for this one, I really liked it. I honestly don't have anything that I didn't like in this. I really like the pacing and the structure of this. It was always bringing new information, and the part that I liked the most was that, well, Pip is still, like, she's a very smart and, like, adequate, like, detective in this, so she's always, like, thinking her theories out loud in her, like, logs and things. It still gives the reader some room to form your own, like, theories in it, so you're not just being given everything, which is nice, because I feel like sometimes that's hard to balance. And then I also really like the kind of, like, social questions and things it brought up about how it was begging the question of who really is good or what really is bad in the world. Like, I feel like this has a lot of like, the moral of the story has place in reality. It's kind of like, as you go through this series, you definitely see, like, everyone kind of does something that's maybe not great, and so discerning whether it's black and white or not isn't really the case for, like, real life. You can't just live life like that. There's, like, a whole gray area, and it's all based on your morality versus someone else's. So it's very much, like, definitely can be placed within, like, real life and how real life works. So, and I think that's interesting in the dynamic for Pip trying to figure out these mysteries and cases along the series, but it starts in this one. And yeah, all in all, I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, so that's pretty high rating for me. But yeah, this was just, it was definitely giving me everything I wanted out of it. Oh, and by the way, this is a young adult mystery thriller with some true crime leanings to it, this series. So, continuing on with the second one. Okay, so the second one in this series is Good Girl, Bad Blood, and we're following a whole nother mystery, but it's still following in the aftermath of the first one. So in this one, we get a whole new mystery. It's regarding a different person of interest and things. And also we're getting still some things from the first one, because pretty much the aftermath is like a court case that's going on in this one, and Pip, and actually we get introduced to Ravi in the first one, which he kind of bands with Pip in it. Ravi is Sal's brother, by the way. I forgot to mention that, but her and Ravi end up making a podcast together, and there she kind of documents all of her, like, her whole capstone project, and also summaries of each court day and what happened in court for the court case that's going on in this one. And she kind of gets some, like, internet fame and criticism. She kind of gets, like, both, like, hate and praise for doing the things she did in the first one, so that part's interesting, and we kind of get little bits of that dispersed throughout this, as well as like, the mystery going on this one throughout between the chapters, like the first one, but it doesn't happen as often in this one. This one definitely feels more just like usual chapter book structure. But the mystery in this one is regarding one of her friend's brother goes missing, and she's trying to quickly track down his, like, whereabouts from the night he disappeared, and finds out, like, his behavior is odd leading up to when he supposedly disappeared. And just some other things get pulled up in here. She gets some more answers to some of the questions that are raised in the first one, which I do like that there's something connecting throughout the trilogy, even though they're all separate mysteries. We're still getting like information about characters that raised questions in the first one and this one. And then we get some more questions raised at the end of this one that lead into the third one. So I like that there's like there's something connecting each part, since they're still connected in some way, even though they're like separated mysteries and things. So yeah, and then in this one, the ending in this one is very brutal, and it's very like life-changing for Pip. I won't spoil, don't worry, but I definitely have to say this one for me felt a lot slower and less exciting than the first one. And I don't know if the kind of like catastrophic ending in this one makes up for it. So yeah, I ended up giving this a 3.8 out of 5 stars. I just didn't like it as much. I found myself like having to push through to get through it, and it's not as fast paced as the first one. So yeah, while I do like that we're seeing more of Holly Jackson's writing style in this one, and I do like her writing, I just think that the pacing is just slow because it's slightly different in the structure and the way it's written, compared to the first one. And then also just like the startup before we even get to like the start of the mystery of Jamie going missing, which is her friend's brother. It's just kind of slow getting to that point, and then it's still trying to ramp up towards like finding like where he went and what happened. So there's still like there's a lot of build up in this one, and I feel like it just goes through a lot of build up, and like it doesn't feel as much like, ooh, then this happened and then this, and my brain wasn't theorizing as much like as I was in the first one. It wasn't as exciting to uncover the mysteries as the first one. So but yeah, it was still pretty good. But yeah, the ending one is just kind of like a crash landing into the third one, and it completely changes the vibe of this series, which is why it's called like good girl kind of a thing. She's kind of losing her good girl vibe over the series as she's kind of like poking into people's lives and discovering that the world just kind of sucks. So that's definitely the part that is the most interesting in this series, is how our main character changes over this trilogy. And so that leads me into the third one. So the third one is As Good as Dead, and this actually got released earlier this year or the end of last year, so it's relatively new. But this is the longest in the series. It's over 400 pages, and it's a chonker a little bit. But so this one, we are in the aftermath of the second one, where like I like that each book directly follows the last one, which is nice. So there's not a whole lot of like reminding to do. It still just kind of like goes into the next portion. But in this one, our Pip, our main character, is not the same at all. She's like traumatized, like traumatized. And I won't say anything about it because it's kind of a spoiler. But anyways, but like she basically, like her everyday life, literally every waking moment, and when she's not sleeping, because she's really not sleeping, is like wholly focused on like the trauma that happened to her at the end of the second one. So she's like real messed up. And in this one, we get into another mystery, but it's more closer to home because this time Pip is being targeted by what she thinks at first is a stalker. And from like the midpoint on, I can't even talk about it because it's like a huge spoiler, but it's less stalking, more like criminal activity, and I won't dive into it at all because, oh boy, it's a surprise. But yeah, so this one is even more so structured like a normal chapter book. There is like next to none of the like logs or interviews in this, and like evidence for her case as she's solving it. So it's very much just a whole ass chapter book. And I think it really works with this one based on how Holly Jackson is writing through Pip's experience dealing with the trauma from the last one. We really see in her writing how messed up Pip is, and like it definitely reflects her like emotion and her mental state in this. So I like that it's very different. Like from the start to the end, it's just, this whole book is just kind of cold, and I think it's interesting seeing it transition into this because it's like a whole different like vibe. And I honestly really like that about this. Some of it did get repetitive at the beginning, just because it was using like the same metaphor, and it was like, I understand it was like a constant thing for Pip, but sometimes it was like, well, we don't need it for like everything, you know what I mean? Like every thought, every interaction we were getting it, and I understand it's like literally plaguing her existence, but like it was just a little repetitive to read. However, the way the ending plays out is extremely interesting because it's almost like the way Pip makes a choice. She kind of has two choices. One of them is the one she ends up choosing in this, which is a very dark choice, and seeing how it plays out still successfully for herself is interesting, but it also kind of made me think like, what would have happened if she had done the other choice? Would it have played out similarly? Would it have played out better for her? And it's just interesting thinking about that. And actually Pip even reflects on that as well. Like if she went back and did a different choice, would it still have been like okay in the end for her? And even so, even when she goes through it, because she's like thinking like, oh yeah, maybe this final case, because it's against me, is gonna be that one that like fixes me, because she's like whole bent on like trying to put herself back, which in reality it's not realistic with what happened to her. But she's basically lost. And then seeing how it still doesn't really like fix anything, because she now has like these secrets she's keeping that are really messed up. So it's just interesting to see how her character changes throughout this series. I really like how bleak the ending as well. Like it still happened out in a successful way, but it's very like, it's a very lonely ending. It's a very melancholy, like she's not really glad over her choices. She's not happy about it, but in the moment, it was the best she could come up with it, and it's still kind of just like really, really crappy ending. So, and I just really like that because it's very stark difference compared to the beginning being like more like naive, innocent schoolgirl, like investigating, and then in this it's very different. So I like that it transitions to that over this trilogy. I wasn't expecting that actually. And I really liked this one. I still say I don't like it as much as the first one, because the first one was giving me very just much like investigative, and this one it's more like we're actually getting more into like personalities and character development. We weren't really getting that in the first one, so it's a little bit different there, but I still really like this one. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So yeah, I would definitely say go through the trilogy to get to this one because it's a ride. And I also just really like Pip as a character. I resonated her throughout this series, even when she was making some bad choices in this one, but it's because I understand her thought process and her hesitation towards, like, trusting the justice system and how it's flawed. Like, it has a lot of place in the real world, so yeah. But I'm really glad I finally got through this series. I enjoyed it. And yeah, on to the next one. Okay, and then the last book I read last month was actually an introduction into a new genre for me, and it was really fun. I can't wait to talk about this one. So this is Maeve Fly. It is by CJ Leede. So this is like an introduction into splatterpunk for me, which is a new kind of horror. It's not normal horror. This is my, like, my warning label. This is not normal horror. This is different. This is very much like, if you're used to horror genre and like snuff films, this isn't anything new to you. So like, please go into this with like looking at trigger warnings, understanding what this genre is, because it's very different. But it was great. It was my first splatterpunk book, and I really liked it because it was giving me stuff that I wasn't expecting in this. And also just like the actual horror in it really wasn't that bad for me, but that's probably because I'm very versed in like the weird horror genre. Like the, if you know the horror movie Iceberg, like I've watched a lot of that. I'm a little messed up in the head from it, but anyway, so yeah, I've been around like snuff films and things like that. So, but this one, as for a summary of this, we are following our main character, Maeve Fly, and she is like it's not actually stated this because of trademark and copyright things, but she is a Disney princess. Specifically, she is, wow, I can't even remember the name of her. What is her name? Is it Elsa? Yes, Elsa from Frozen. She's the snowy sister. Anyways, I'm not a Disney person, I'm sorry. Anyways, so she works as a princess for kids' parties. She works in Disneyland. Like, you can gather it from reading this, who she is and what she does. But that's what she does by day. And then, like, at night, she kind of prowls bars and different places like that, like clubs, strip clubs, etc. on the strip, with one of her friends who she also works with. Her and her friend are actually Anna and Elsa in Disneyland. And so, which they're, like, very well known in Disneyland because they're like the most popular there. But yeah, they're very different in their nightlife because they're like party people. And we learn very quickly that Maeve is a very strange character. She's very much, you can tell she's a psychopath. Just how she talks about things she likes, and also when she reminisces on her interactions with her grandmother, because she ended up moving to LA to move in with her grandmother, which is like an old Hollywood movie star. And yeah, so then in the story, her best friend Kate's brother Gideon ends up coming to town, and he actually moves here. And he actually is a hockey player. He's a very famous hockey player, but as soon as she meets him, things kind of like change for her. She starts like getting really attached to him, and then like stuff happens. The ending's crazy, like oof. But she's also kind of like a murderous psychopath. Specifically in the synopsis of this, it literally says that she's inspired by American Psycho. She's like a lady version of that, which is kind of fun. But like, what I got in this was really unexpected, and I really like when horror does this. But so our character really goes into like societal and social norms and some like psychology between like men and women in this. She kind of has her own like little crazy spiel she goes on. Like, I don't know if I can explain it. Like, she kind of like has this tendency to ramble about things that she likes, because she reads a lot of like weird Russian literature. She specifically knows a lot of information about like horror, Halloween music. So like Halloween themed music and artists and things like that, that's like the only music she'll listen to. And yeah, she goes into stuff about how she's never understood like characterizations of men in horror versus like women in horror. How she describes as like men always can be written in a way where they're like a psychopath. They do bad things, but they don't necessarily have a reason to do those things. And it's always kind of like expected out of like men in horror and in general. But like, if women are ever written in horror or anything like that, they always need to have a reason for why they're acting the way they are, because it's not normal, it's not socially accepted for women to just be crazy or a psychopath. They need to have a reason. And she kind of like questions that, because she is like, well, I'm not like that. I don't need a reason to be a murderer. Like, I just do what I feel like and I have fun with it. So I think that's actually some really interesting bits that are pulled up in this. And like, it's funny because it's like, she's literally crazy. Her brain not okay, but like, she puts a lot of good points in this that I really enjoyed reading. And I really like when horror does that. If you've seen The House That Jack Built, it's very much that kind of a thing where he's like rambling about like psychology and society and like pressure on people to act a certain way, and he's like, but why? You know, like, I'm not gonna do that. And it's just, I really like that. I don't know why. And then another thing that she does in this is she specifically chose to do Elsa from Frozen. She really wanted to do that character because she sees her as very different compared to like all the other princesses in the Disney universe. She's seen as like a character who has very terrible and powerful magic, but she still embraces it, and she doesn't necessarily have like a reason to be afraid of it. Whereas like the other princesses in a lot of Disney things, like they need a man and they do this, and like it's all very like stereotypical. So she like, it's funny because she resonates with this princess, this kid's princess, because of that. And I think like her thoughts and theories on like things like that are very interesting to read in this. So yeah, I really enjoyed that part. I also just really liked the prose in this. The writing in this was just, it matched with the whole vibe of this book. Like, it was just great. I wasn't expecting it out of a splatterpunk book, mostly because like splatterpunk is a very like kind of a niche genre, so a lot of times authors aren't able to get like professional publishing companies to like actually publish their work because it's messed up stuff. So they typically don't have like a lot of editors looking at their work, so sometimes there's a lot of errors in it. But not this one. This one was different, and I wasn't expecting that. So maybe I'm spoiled now because I read one that was done very well, and like other authors aren't as fortunate at having like really good editors and things like that. I don't know, but like I think I might be spoiled on this one. So, but just I loved this. It was totally weird. I found myself like cackling at stuff, and it was just really funny because like she'll be having this conversation with people, and they'll bring up stuff that's like really gross and not really like something you would just bring up to a stranger at like a party, and they would act like it's completely normal, and she would just go along with it. But then she would start going off on her own tangent, and she would say it with like a very cold face, very like stale face, like non-emotive, and she would say like the most horrible out-of-pocket stuff, and I think she does it to just mess with people, but like she says this thing that's like almost on the same level as what weird thing they were talking about, and then suddenly they're like, I have to go, and it's just really funny. Like, those interactions are hilarious to me, and they happen quite a bit in the hair, which I really liked. I wasn't expecting it to just be funny. And then I also have to say, like, the actual horror parts in this, for someone who is very versed in like horror and snuff genres, it's really not that bad. There is gore in here, and there's stuff in here that's kind of disgusting. Like, don't read this if you like eggs, and I'm not gonna say anything else. But like, there is some like gross aspects in this, but it's nothing new to this kind of a genre to me. It's stuff I've kind of seen before, so most enjoyable parts were really just like her rambling on about like her thoughts and theories on life, which were just kind of interesting. And then also, I did actually end up tabbing this book, and I specifically tabbed any of the books she mentioned in this that were like her Russian literature that she basically used to like how-to guides for her life. And I'm just like, girl, why are you using these for how-to guides? Some of these are messed up. And then some of the other tabs are actually me bookmarking all of the music she listed in this, because it's actually like music I know and music that I would like. It's like 80s music, 80s rock music and things like that, which I grew up listening to, so some of this stuff I already knew. And I just wanted to make a playlist of it, which was a fun idea for myself. So those are what my tabs are. But yeah, I really had a lot of fun with this, and it centers around Halloween because it kind of culminates into Halloween night. So reading this before October was really fun. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was great. I really liked it. It was really fun and kooky and weird and messed up, but really fun. And I think having a female lead in it makes it even more interesting for that, because she really does go into like some of the other like social norms for women in this, which even though she's literally crazy, I still feel like it has a place in like making you think about life. So I just really enjoyed it. So yeah. Okay, and that is the end of my wrap up for September. I hope you enjoyed me rambling on, but a really good successful month for reading. Honestly, I really liked everything I read. And so I had already posted my TBR for October last week, so if you haven't seen that, you can see what I'm reading now. I think I won't have a book vlog for this month. I'll probably do something else. And then we will get into next month's read, which I'm gonna go back into some fantasy stuff, so that'll be fun. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know anything you read in September that you really liked in the comments. But other than that, I will see you guys next week. Bye.